Good morning, everybody. It looks like time is up, or running out at least, for the Zelensky regime in Ukraine. Now, the special military operation was started in Ukraine by Putin of Russia in February 2022. It's now been going on for a year and 9 months, nearly, coming up to 2 years if it goes on for another 3 months. But, whether that happens or not, we don't know. By that, hopefully, this situation, this conflict will have been ended with some peace negotiations, which it could have been done right at the beginning. Indeed, this whole situation could have been totally avoided, and not a single death needed to happen in this conflict if the collective West, which has supported the Zelensky regime, had tried to achieve peace before this happened. But there were two possible peace deals being arranged very, very soon after it started in 2022, notably one brokered by Erdogan in Turkey. But then as soon as that happened, Boris Johnson went over to see Zelensky, and then that supposed deal was then broken, and he was said he's going to carry on the war with lots of promises of money and weapons going to the Zelensky regime. And over the last year and a half, collective Western governments have just provided more money, more weapons, more stronger weapons, bigger weapons, more destructive weapons, weapons which have a longer range, and so now he has Storm Shadow missiles from the UK. He's got Leopard tanks from Germany. He's got the Patriot defense system. He's got the ATACMS system from the US, and so on. It just goes on and on. But it now appears that even the biggest war pigs of the mainstream media in the collective West are making noises to suggest that this has gone beyond what is sustainable. Notably, last month in Time magazine, which wrote a piece about Zelensky and was highly, highly critical of him and his wanting to continue the conflicts, the war, whatever you like it, in ad infinitum. This is what it says. I'll just read a couple of lines from this. It says Zelensky feels betrayed by his Western allies. They've left him without the means to win the war, only the means to survive it. Even though billions or tens of billions of pounds, dollars and euros have been pumped into Ukraine, along with vast stockpiles of weapons from the Western arsenals. Then it goes on, but his convictions haven't changed despite the recent setbacks on the battlefield. So they're admitting that the war isn't going well for the Zelensky regime. Despite the recent setbacks on the battlefield, he does not intend to give up fighting or to sue for any kind of peace. On the contrary, his belief in Ukraine's ultimate victory over Russia has hardened into a form that worries some of his advisors. Now, that's quite an admission to make from the war pig MSM. It is immovable, verging on the messianic. He deludes himself, one of his closest aides tells me in frustration. We're out of options. We're not winning. But try telling him that. Now, the closest aide there is not named, so there's probably someone who is a figment of somebody's imagination. But the message coming through here in Time magazine is clear. The powers that be, the propagandists that be, are now running out of patience with what's going on in Ukraine and see this as a lost cause, and are getting ready to pull the plug on the Zelensky regime. Now, he himself, Zelensky, is complaining that the focus has turned away from Ukraine onto Israel and Gaza. And there's another article in another war pig outlet called the BBC. We all know it in the UK and around the world. And this is entitled, Ukraine War Zelensky says Israel-Gaza conflict taking focus away from fighting. And it just goes on to, I'll put a link to the article there. But there's some interesting things in here. It says, everyone is getting tired and there are different options, Mr. Zelensky replied, adding, but this is not a stalemate. But then it goes on to say he admitted that Russia was controlling the skies and Ukraine urgently needs US-made F-16 warplanes and advanced anti-aircraft defences to change the situation. Now, it's been made very clear that F-16 warplanes are not going to be made available. I think the ATACMS weapon system is the last upgrade to the weaponry that they're going to get. He's asking for F-16s. That's not going to happen. So that's really going to put an end to the escalation by the collective West, hopefully. It also says here that Zelensky, who is the chief military commander in Ukraine, says that the war is now moving to a positional or static stage, and this would benefit Moscow by allowing it to rebuild its military power. Now, this is quite an admission for coming in the BBC, because they have been the biggest cheerleaders and biggest propagandists for an ultimate Zelensky victory. He's going to push the Russians completely back into Russia. Zelensky's going to be victorious. He's going to take back all of Novorossiya, Donetsk, Luhansk, going to take Crimea back, and the nothing more than ultimate victory is inevitable. But here they are saying and admitting and quoting Zelensky as saying that they're basically now stuck. And the counteroffensive, the vaunted counter-offensive that the Ukrainian armed forces have been going to do for over a year, it just simply hasn't happened. They've tried, but it's just got stuck, and the Russians have ceded a little bit of ground and then pummeled the advancing forces and then moved back into that area. That's been their tactic. It hasn't been to advance and take loads and loads of land, but it's been to grind down the Ukrainian armed forces. So much so that the majority of their primary standing army, standing military forces have gone. They've either been killed or injured and completely incapacitated in battle. It's a tragedy for Ukraine and the young men of Ukraine who are not National Socialists. I don't have any sympathy for those who go around branding National Socialist symbols on their body and on their clothing, but ordinary young men who just want to get on with their lives and live a normal life and just haven't been allowed to. They've been conscripted by essentially press gangs and forced to go to the front lines to their deaths. And now the average age of soldiers in the Ukrainian forces on the front line apparently is 43 years old. They've run out of young men, and now they are press ganging middle-aged men, some of whom may have been in the armed forces 20 years ago but have retired and just gone on to their life, or people who've never been in military service at all before, and they've been forced to go to the front line. And they are no match for the massive Russian army, which has got 500,000 people ready behind the front lines to get involved if they need to. So they're grinding down the Ukrainian armed forces. They're in a parlous state. And so one of two things could happen. When they are finally ground down to a point where they cannot hold the front line, Russia could make a lightning advance all the way up to the Dnieper River in the east of Ukraine, or they may negotiate peace with the Zelensky regime if he changes his tune and if pressure is put on him by the collective Western governments. I don't think that will happen because they've been utter war pigs up to now. no regard for Russia, Ukraine, or the West. The ordinary people of all those three places are losers in this war. The winners are the people who are shareholders and stakeholders in the US military industrial complex, who are making masses of money, billions of dollars, out of selling weapons or to Ukraine, which are then just being wasted, and lives are being sent into the grinding machine to make some money for some disgusting war pigs. Those are the winners. The ordinary people of the West have lost because the sanctions on Russia have hurt ordinary people more than they've hurt Russia, because of energy prices going up, because the Western Europe is no longer able to receive gas from Russia because the Nord Stream pipelines were blown up, and there's sanctions which are utterly ridiculous, say that Western countries can't buy gas from Russia, even though there are some pipelines still intact, not the ones under the sea, but the ones going over land. And as I say, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian men, tens of thousands of Russian men have been slaughtered in the battlefront. So we need to just bring this conflict to a close as quickly as possible and end this, negotiate a peace somehow to stop the slaughter. And in a way, it is a very good thing that the war pigs are now indicating that the time is up for the Zelensky regime.